Week 4 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to trade for and buy this week. The first guy, Bryan of the Colorado Rockies. So the Rockies, they got off to a good start season here. And Bryan, he was playing good baseball before he went down. On the season, no home runs, 4 RBIs, 11 runs scored, a 281 average, and a 338 on base percentage. So Bryan here, his last ball game was April 25th before he went on the injured list with a back injury. And Bryan, we know he's a good talent. And we know he's a very versatile player as well in fantasy. First, third, and outfield he qualifies at. So right now, we'll see how long he's going to be out for. He's yet to resume hitting, was the latest news on him from yesterday. So right here, he's probably going to come back in 2-3 weeks, I would imagine, in Bryan. And right now, I would go out there and make an offer to the Bryan owner. Because this guy, we saw last season him have a good season. And we saw the Rockies pretty much let Nolan Arenado get traded for nothing last season. And let Trevor Story walk. And they get Bryan the 7-year deal instead. Because they believe this guy could be a franchise player. And so far, the last couple seasons, he's looked pretty good here. And once he comes back, he's going to help fantasy teams with the versatility. And a guy who could definitely help your roster as your third or fourth best hitter. So right now, while he's injured and down is Bryan, it's a perfect time to go get him. Because obviously, in Coors Field as well, those stats are inflated. And that's what you're going to want. A guy like that who can hit the baseball to all fields and play in a great hitter's park. So right now, go get Bryan before he comes back. And he tears it up. And it's too late to get him. To pay full value for him. When right now, you don't. The next guy's Ketel Marte of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Marte, he had a monster season last season and got the big contract with Arizona. But so far this season, he just hasn't done much here as Marte. 1 home run, 7 RBIs, a stolen base, 9 runs scored, a 174 average, and a 252 on base. I know this Arizona Diamondback team is possibly one of the worst teams in the league once again this season here. But Marte is too talented of a hitter to be hitting 174 right now. And he's another guy with good versatility, second in outfield. So right here would be the perfect time to go out there and get him. Because last season he hit 318, 14 homers, 50 RBIs, and had a good on-base percentage. But the good thing for him here is Marte, 25 strikeouts and 92 at-bats. It might not sound all that great, but he's putting the ball in play, but he just can't get things going right now. So the last few games here for Marte, April 28th at St. Louis 0-4. April 29th at St. Louis 1-4 with a run. April 30th at St. Louis 1-4 with a homer and an RBI. May 1st at St. Louis 1-4 with a run. May 3rd at Miami 1-4 with a run and a rib. And May 4th at Miami 2-2 with 2 runs. So right here, he's at least on a 5-game hitting streak is Marte. And maybe he's breaking out of this slump a little bit here. And this Diamondback team, they've actually won 5 out of 6 games. If Marte could get going, this Diamondback team maybe could be surprising this season. But I highly doubt it. Once it's all said and done, they'll probably be one of the worst teams in the league. But that doesn't mean Marte can't contribute and be a good fantasy player. So right now, while he's down in the doldrums and below the Mendoza line, this is a perfect time to go out there and get him. The next guy's Alex Bregman of the Houston Astros. So Bregman last season, he didn't play the full season, obviously. And so far this season, he's off to a mediocre start. 4 home runs, 16 RBIs, 14 runs scored, 247 average, and a 347 on base. So right here, the batting average isn't where you want to be. The power is pretty decent with the 4 home runs in the first 4 weeks of the season. And right here, if this Astro team wants to do big things this season, they're definitely going to need Bregman to get things going. So the last few games here for Bregman, April 28th at Texas 0-4. April 29th at Toronto 1-4, a homer, 3 runs scored and an RBI. April 30th at Toronto 0-5. May 1st at Toronto 0-1. May 2nd versus Seattle 1-4. May 3rd versus Seattle 0-4. And then yesterday versus Seattle, he had a breakout game, 3-for-3, 3 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. So Bregman, before yesterday's game, he was in a total tailspin, and his average was below 230. But now that 3-for-3 game early in the season definitely rised up his batting average. But still, over the last couple weeks here, he's only batting 200 is Alex Bregman. So right now, while his power really hasn't been there over the last couple weeks, and his batting average has been down in the dumps, he's a guy I definitely would go out there and try to trade for. Because if he could get hot and get things going, he's a perennial 25 to 35 home run hitter with a 270, 280 batting average. So if you could get this on your fantasy roster before the big breakout comes and not have to give up top premium price for Bregman, this would be the perfect time to do it. The next guy is Mookie Betts of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So the last season and a half here, Mookie Betts, in my opinion, he just hasn't been the same here as Betts. Last season, the low batting average, 23 and 58, which still is a decent season for most players, but for Mookie Betts, it's not that great. And this season so far, 4 home runs, 8 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, a 247 average, and a 350 on base. So his on base is definitely good, but the batting average and the power isn't all that great, even though the runs scored are very good at 23. But Mookie Betts, I just feel like the last couple of years, his numbers have been down, especially compared to his Boston Red Sox days. So the last few games from April 26th at the D-backs, 0 for 4. April 27th at Arizona, 2 for 4 with a run. April 29th versus Detroit, 1 for 3 with a run. April 30th versus Detroit, 2 for 4, a homer and a rib. May 1st versus Detroit, 1 for 4 with 2 runs. May 3rd versus San Francisco, 1 for 4. And May 4th versus San Francisco, a homer, 2 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. So right here, another guy possibly breaking out of his slump with the home run in last night's game. And now the Dodgers, they go to a good hitters park, obviously, in Wrigley Field at the Chicago Cubs, starting a series tomorrow. So right here, Mookie Betts, I know he's scoring runs. I know his on base is good, but his home runs and RBIs and stolen bases ain't all that great. So right now, while his numbers aren't all there, this is a perfect time to go out there and try to trade for Betts as well. And even last season, like I mentioned, the numbers, they look good at the end of the season, but it took him to have one big month to get those numbers where they were, where he was inconsistent for most of the season. So right now, I would go out there and try to make a deal for Betts, because if he could get it right, this guy's obviously a top 10 talent in fantasy baseball when he's clicking on all cylinders. And the 5th and final hitter I look to buy and trade for this week is Nelson Cruz of the Washington Nationals. So Cruz, this offseason, surprisingly went to Washington over the Dodgers or the San Diego Padres. And right here, he's been slumping and struggling big time as Cruz. 2 home runs, 12 RBIs, 11 runs scored, a 143 average, and a 233 on base. So right here, Nelson Cruz, we've known for years, the 42-year-old. He's been a 30-plus home run hitter. And so far this season, he's struggling with his new team over there in Washington. And maybe this is it for him, where he finally broke down and can't get things going. But in one season, for that to happen, that's hard to believe, because Nelson Cruz, he's been one of the best power hitters in the last decade in the major leagues. So the last few games here for him, April 27th versus Miami, 0 for 3 with a rib. April 28th versus Miami, 0 for 3. April 29th at San Francisco, 0 for 5, 2 runs and a rib. April 30th at San Francisco, 1 for 4. May 1st at San Francisco, 0 for 4 with a rib and a run. And May 3rd at the Rockies, 0 for 3. So right here, maybe he's got to adjust to National League pitcher, because pretty much his whole career, he's been an American League player, obviously, is Nelson Cruz with the Twins, Texas Rangers. Last season, he spent some time with the Tampa Bay Rays. So right here, he's in a division with good pitching staffs. The Mets have a good staff, obviously. Miami's been surprising pitching the baseball. And even Philly, when they're right, their pitching staff, and the Braves is pretty solid. So with all those factors, with the National League adjustment for Cruz, even though he's a DH, obviously, but the pitching he's never seen, and the good pitching in the division, maybe it's going to take him time to get things going. But now, Washington, they go on a West Coast trip for a 3-game set at the Angels. Obviously, a team that Cruz is very familiar with. So Cruz, I wouldn't give up on him this early in the season. He, like I mentioned, this guy can hit 30 home runs each and every season. And even last season and 2 years ago, he got off to the slow start. But when it's all said and done, his numbers are there. So if you're looking for some power and RBIs, I would go out there and make a trade for Cruz. And right now, while his value is way down in the dumps, and he's obviously been dropped in 5% of fantasy leagues as well, this is a perfect time to go get him. So that's a few hitters I've looked to buy and trade for Week 4 of the fantasy baseball season.